You think she can cook? She's nothing but a janitor, Chef Richard scoffed, looking at Emma Carter with a condescending smile. Let's see if she can even handle this dish. I bet she can't. The bustling kitchen of La Gourmet, the most renowned fine dining restaurant in town, echoed with the clattering of pots and pans. Behind the stainless steel countertops and pristine white aprons, the chefs moved like a well-oiled machine, working effortlessly under the heat of the flames. But Emma, who had worked as a janitor here for the past few months, was hardly a part of that machine. She swept the floors and cleaned the counters, always out of the spotlight, always invisible. Her simple, navy uniform and quiet demeanor never caught anyone's eye. But today, something was different. Today, Chef Richard, the proud and arrogant head chef, had noticed her in the most unexpected way. With a smirk, he pushed a recipe card across the counter towards Emma, as if testing her. Cook this. As a joke, of course, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The dish he handed her was a complex French delicacy, one that required skill, precision, and experience. Something far beyond what Emma's job required. The kitchen staff, who were always quick to laugh and gossip, snickered as they watched Emma stare at the card. It wasn't uncommon for Richard to mock people, but today, Emma was the target. She's a janitor, for crying out loud. One of the sous chefs whispered to another. She won't even get the sauce right. Emma felt the weight of their gazes. She could hear their laughter, the way they dismissed her, as if she were invisible. But she didn't flinch. She had been underestimated her whole life. No one had ever seen what she was truly capable of. Taking a deep breath, Emma carefully folded the recipe card in half and set it aside. Her hands, usually used for cleaning, moved with surprising precision as she began to gather the ingredients. She reached for the fresh herbs, the delicate cuts of meat, and the perfectly ripe vegetables. Every motion was measured, controlled, and deliberate. As she worked, the sounds of the kitchen began to fade, replaced by the steady rhythm of her actions. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She just needed to focus. The knife glided through the vegetables with ease, the ingredients falling neatly into place. The sizzling sound of the pan heating up was music to her ears as she added the oil, watching it shimmer before adding the meat. Her hands, now steady and sure, worked the stove with confidence. No one in the kitchen was speaking now. They were watching her. But Emma was lost in the process, in the simple art of cooking. It wasn't just a task. It was a form of expression, a quiet rebellion against the judgment she had faced for so long. Chef Richard watched from the corner of the kitchen, his arms crossed, a look of disbelief slowly creeping onto his face. The dish was coming together perfectly. The sauce was smooth and velvety, the meat cooked to perfection. There was no hesitation in Emma's movements. No mistakes, just calm, collected expertise. As she plated the dish, the room fell completely silent. She added the final touches, a garnish of fresh herbs, and placed the plate on the counter in front of Richard. For a moment, no one moved. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. Chef Richard, still standing at the same spot, stared at the dish with wide eyes. His jaw tightened, and his face turned pale. He slowly reached out, his fingers trembling as he lifted the plate. He took a bite. The room held its breath. The first taste hit his tongue, and his expression shifted. The arrogance he had shown earlier melted away, replaced by shock. He swallowed, the taste lingering on his tongue. "How did you?" he started, but his voice trailed off. He looked at Emma, as if seeing her for the first time. The kitchen was still. The chefs, who had been mocking her just moments before, were now standing in stunned silence. Emma, standing tall behind the counter, watched Richard, her expression calm, her eyes steady. She didn't need to say anything. The dish had already spoken for her. The kitchen was no longer filled with laughter, but with stunned silence. They had all underestimated her, and now they would never forget it. As the seconds ticked by, the silence in the kitchen grew heavier. Chef Richard stood frozen, still holding the plate, his face a mixture of disbelief and awe. Emma stood at the counter, her hands folded, waiting for a response, though she had no real need to hear anything. The dish had already proven everything. "This is perfect," Richard finally muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the kitchen staff, who had been silently watching, exchanged glances, their faces reflecting a mix of shock and admiration. The arrogance that had once been so evident in Richard's posture was gone, replaced by a quiet humility. Emma's simple movements had shattered every assumption they'd made about her. She wasn't just a janitor. She was a chef in disguise, a master in the kitchen, and they had all been blind to it. A few moments passed, and Richard slowly placed the plate back on the counter, his eyes still on Emma. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" he asked, his tone softer now, tinged with a respect that had not been there before. Emma smiled faintly but didn't answer. She wasn't here to boast or prove anything further. She simply wanted to cook, to share her love for food with those who could appreciate it. Richard took another bite, savoring the delicate flavors that danced on his tongue. He had tasted this dish in many prestigious restaurants, but never had it been prepared with such care, such precision, and never by someone like Emma. The kitchen had gone from bustling with activity to a quiet hum, as everyone waited for Richard to speak. He cleared his throat, as if gathering his thoughts, then looked up at Emma. "I was wrong about you," he admitted, his voice steady now. "You're not just a janitor. You're incredible." Emma's smile remained small, but there was a flicker of pride in her eyes. It wasn't about the praise, but the fact that she had finally been seen for who she truly was. One of the sous chefs, still processing the turn of events, hesitantly stepped forward. "Chef," he began, his voice uncertain. "What do we do now? Do we ask her to work in the kitchen?" Richard raised a hand to stop him, his gaze never leaving Emma. "No," he said, his tone firm but thoughtful. "We don't just ask her to work here. We ask her to teach us. We've got a lot to learn." The words hit like a wave. The chefs, who had been so quick to dismiss Emma, now found themselves in awe of her skill. She had done what none of them had expected, and in the process, she had earned their respect in a way no one could have predicted. As the staff began to quietly disperse, murmurs of admiration still echoing through the kitchen, Emma remained standing at her station. She wasn't looking for accolades or recognition. She had only done what she loved. But today, she had shown the world, at least the world within these kitchen walls, that anyone could have greatness inside them, no matter where they started. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but Emma couldn't help but notice the shift. The other chefs greeted her with nods of respect, their voices now warm instead of dismissive. They were no longer mocking her or doubting her abilities. They were learning from her. And for Emma, that was enough. As she cleaned her station that evening, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had shown them who she really was, without saying a word. Sometimes, action spoke louder than anything else. The next few days in the kitchen were different. Emma walked in every morning, her steps steady, her presence no longer overlooked. The staff, who once dismissed her, now looked at her with a quiet respect. The kitchen had transformed. Chef Richard, who had been the one to challenge her in the first place, now sought her out for advice. "Emma," he would say, "how do you suggest we plate this? Or what's your take on the seasoning?" His once sharp tone was replaced with genuine curiosity. The other chefs, once eager to prove their superiority, had taken a step back and watched as Emma effortlessly blended into the rhythm of the kitchen, her every move deliberate and precise. The sous chefs, who had been among the loudest in mocking her, now asked her for tips on perfecting their knife skills or achieving the right temperature for sauces. It was clear they were all learning from her. One evening, after a particularly hectic dinner service, Chef Richard called Emma into his office. She stepped inside, expecting to discuss the day's service, but instead, Richard was standing by a corked bottle of wine, a smile on his face. "I've been thinking," he said, pouring them both a glass. "You belong in this kitchen, Emma. Not as a janitor, but as a chef. I want you to be part of the team. I want to see what you can really do." Emma was taken aback. She had never imagined this day would come. The offer was unexpected, yet it felt right. Richard wasn't just offering her a place as a cook. He was offering her respect, something she had always longed for but never asked for. I don't know what to say," Emma replied, her voice soft but steady. "I've always just wanted to cook. I never thought I'd get a chance in a place like this." Richard nodded, his gaze serious. "I know. That's why I'm offering you this opportunity. I've seen what you can do. You've got the talent, Emma. You've got something special." The next morning, Emma found herself standing in front of a gleaming stove once again, but this time, it wasn't just for cleaning. She was cooking alongside the chefs who had once doubted her. They had all seen what she was capable of, and they were ready to work with her as equals. The air was filled with the sounds of sizzling food, the clinking of knives, and the chatter of a kitchen working in perfect harmony. But Emma's heart was light. She had earned her place here, not through words, but through her actions. As the days went on, Emma became an integral part of the kitchen. She crafted dishes with the same precision she had shown when she first stepped into the kitchen, but now, she was part of something bigger. The other chefs relied on her, learning from her experience and expertise. She was no longer the quiet woman in the back. She was a chef, respected by her peers, and finally, she had found a place where she truly belonged. The weeks passed, and Emma's presence in the kitchen had become a cornerstone of the restaurant. Her reputation had spread beyond the kitchen staff. The sous chefs now sought her out not just for advice, but for mentorship. She had earned their trust, and the restaurant's head chef, Richard, couldn't be more pleased. Every evening, when the dinner rush arrived, Emma worked with quiet confidence, orchestrating each dish with the precision of a seasoned professional. But her success didn't go unnoticed by the higher-ups. One evening, as Emma was finishing up a delicate dessert, she heard the sound of a familiar voice. "Emma, can I talk to you for a minute?" It was Richard. She wiped her hands on her apron and followed him to the small office at the back of the kitchen. He closed the door behind them, his expression more serious than usual. "I've been meaning to tell you," Richard began, his voice steady. "You've made quite an impression around here. The staff, they respect you, and the food, it's outstanding. You're not just a cook, you're an artist." Emma could feel the warmth rising in her chest at his words, but she kept her composure. "Thank you," she said quietly, though she didn't need the praise to feel validated. "It means a lot coming from you." Richard continued, "I want you to consider something. The restaurant's been getting more attention lately. I've been asked to open a second location, and I want you to be part of it. We need someone who understands the craft and the heart of what we do here. I want you to help lead the kitchen in the new restaurant." Emma's eyes widened. She had never imagined being part of something this big. She had never even thought of herself as someone who could be in charge. But here she was, standing in front of Richard, who was offering her a chance to be part of the restaurant's next chapter. "I don't know what to say," she replied, her voice soft but full of emotion. "I never thought I'd be considered for something like this." Richard smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Emma, you've earned this. You've earned the right to lead. The team looks to you now. You've proved yourself." For a moment, Emma stood there, the weight of the offer settling in. It wasn't just an opportunity to cook in a different location. It was a chance to shape the future of the restaurant, to build something new with the skills she had spent years perfecting. She took a deep breath, feeling the excitement building inside her. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady with resolve. "I'll help lead the new restaurant." Richard nodded, his face lighting up. "I knew I could count on you. I'll start making the arrangements. It's going to be big, Emma. You're going to be incredible." As Emma left the office that night, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had started as a janitor, working in the background, unnoticed. And now, she was being offered a leadership role, a position she had never even dreamed of. She had earned her place in the kitchen and beyond. She wasn't just a part of the team anymore. She was a vital piece of the restaurant's future. That night, as she walked home, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Emma realized something. She had always believed that her value was in the work she did quietly, in the background. But now, she knew her worth was in her skills, her dedication, and the way she led others by example. She wasn't just a woman who could cook. She was a force in the kitchen, and nothing would stop her now. The day of the grand opening of the new restaurant arrived, and Emma stood in front of the gleaming doors, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't just another day at work. It was the beginning of something new, something bigger than she had ever imagined. The restaurant, with its modern design and state-of-the-art kitchen, was everything she had dreamed of, yet it felt intimidating. She had never been in charge of a place like this before. As she walked through the doors, the smell of freshly prepared food hit her, and she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. This was her space now. The kitchen was bustling with activity, the chefs prepping ingredients, and the waitstaff getting the last details in place. Richard stood near the kitchen door, watching as Emma approached. His face broke into a smile. "You ready for this?" he asked, his voice full of confidence in her. Emma nodded, a slight smile playing on her lips. "I think I am." As she walked into the kitchen, She could feel the eyes of the staff on her. She had been in this exact spot before, the one where no one thought she belonged. But today it was different. She had earned her place, not just by showing her skills, but by earning the respect of every person in this room. "All right, team," Emma called, her voice firm yet calm. "We have a full house tonight, so let's make it perfect. You all know what to do. Let's show them what we can do." The chefs, all experienced and talented, nodded and moved into action. Emma's presence commanded respect, and they followed her lead without question. She worked seamlessly with the team, guiding them through each dish, ensuring everything was cooked to perfection. She was no longer the invisible woman in the back. She was the leader, the one everyone turned to when they needed direction. As the evening progressed, Emma moved around the kitchen, checking each station, offering advice when needed, and making sure every plate was presented beautifully. The kitchen ran like a well-oiled machine, and Emma was at the heart of it. The rush of orders came in, but there was no panic, no chaos. Just smooth, efficient work. At the end of the night, as the last plate was served, Emma stood by the kitchen door, watching the satisfied customers leave. Richard came over, his face lit up with pride. "You did it, Emma," he said, clapping her on the back. "You really did it. The restaurant's a hit." Emma smiled, the weight of the night's success settling in. She had done it. The team had done it. Together, they had created something special. As the staff began to clean up, Emma stood still for a moment, taking in the sound of the kitchen settling down. This was just the beginning, but already, she had proven herself. She wasn't just a simple woman anymore. She was the heartbeat of this restaurant, and she had earned every ounce of respect she had now. The future was hers, and nothing could stop her. Months passed, and Emma's life had completely transformed. The new restaurant was thriving, and her leadership was undeniable. She had built a reputation not just as a skilled chef, but as a strong, calm, and collected leader who knew how to guide her team through the toughest of situations. Emma's mornings were spent overseeing the kitchen, checking orders, and fine-tuning the menu. Her afternoons were dedicated to training the staff, ensuring that everyone, from the most experienced sous chef to the newest dishwasher, understood the importance of precision and care. She was no longer just a member of the team. She was the backbone of it. Every night, as the dinner rush began, Emma's presence was felt in every corner of the kitchen. Her staff had come to rely on her, and she had built an atmosphere of mutual respect. It was clear that they trusted her to keep things running smoothly. No matter how busy or stressful things got, Emma remained calm, guiding her team with quiet confidence. One evening, as she checked the orders for the night, Richard came over to her station, his face unusually serious. "Emma, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. Emma looked up at him, sensing that something was off. "What's going on?" she asked. Richard hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "There's an investor who's interested in buying a part of the restaurant. They want to expand and make this a chain. They've been following our progress, and they like what they see. But, Emma," he paused, looking at her carefully, "they want you to be a part of it. They want you to help run the new locations, to be the face of the brand." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had built this place from the ground up, and now someone wanted to take it to the next level. The thought of being part of something so big, so far beyond what she had ever imagined, was overwhelming. But at the same time, it was exciting. Richard could see the hesitation in her eyes. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently. "But think about it. You've got something special, Emma. You've built this from scratch, and it's only the beginning." Emma looked around the kitchen, her eyes taking in the familiar faces of the staff she had come to see as family. They had all grown together, learned together, and had created something amazing. But could she take it to the next level? Could she leave the comfort of what she knew and step into something even bigger? That night, after the kitchen had quieted down and the last dishes were washed, Emma sat by herself at a small table in the corner. She thought about all the challenges she had faced, how she had started as a janitor, underestimated and unseen, how she had risen to become a leader, someone her team looked up to and trusted. She had built this from nothing, and now she had the chance to build even more. But the question still lingered. Was she ready to take that next step? Could she expand her vision, not just for herself, but for the team who had supported her every step of the way? The decision wasn't easy, but Emma knew one thing for sure. She had worked hard to get here, and no matter what, she wasn't going to let fear hold her back. The next morning, As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the windows of the restaurant, Emma made her decision. She was ready. Ready to take on the challenge. Ready to lead her team to new heights. She wasn't just a chef anymore. She was a force, and nothing was going to stop her. The news about Emma's new role spread quickly, and soon, she found herself overseeing not just one, but several kitchens. The expansion had begun, and with it, new challenges. Emma, once a janitor, now stood at the helm of a thriving restaurant empire. It was a far cry from where she had started, but she knew that she was ready. The pressure was immense, but the satisfaction of seeing her vision come to life was worth every sleepless night. One evening, as she was finalizing the menu for a new location, her phone rang. It was Richard. "Emma, I just got off the phone with the investors. They want you to lead a national campaign for the brand. They're looking at you as the face of the entire chain." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been focused on the day-to-day operations, building the restaurant's reputation one dish at a time. But this was something entirely different. A national campaign meant stepping out of the kitchen into the public eye. It meant becoming the face of the restaurant. The pressure was overwhelming, but it was also an incredible opportunity. "I don't know, Richard," Emma said, her voice wavering slightly. "I've always been behind the scenes. I've built this from the ground up, but I've never wanted the spotlight." Richard's voice was calm and reassuring. "I understand, Emma, but you've earned it. The way you've led this team, the way you've made this restaurant what it is today, it's not just about the food anymore. It's about you. People want to see who's behind this success, and you can inspire so many others." Emma sat back in her chair, the weight of his words sinking in. She had always been content to work in the kitchen, to let the food speak for itself. But Richard was right. She had come so far, and this was a chance to show the world who she was, not just as a chef, but as a leader. "All right," Emma said, her voice firm. "I'll do it. I'll lead the campaign." The next few weeks were a blur. Emma was thrust into the world of media, photo shoots, and interviews. She was no longer just a chef. She was a brand. The experience was both exhilarating and exhausting. She had to navigate the fine line between staying true to herself and embracing the spotlight. But no matter how many cameras flashed or how many people wanted a piece of her, Emma remained focused on the kitchen. She knew her roots. Her heart was still in the food. And every time she stepped back into the kitchen, it was like coming home. The campaign launched to critical acclaim. The restaurant saw an increase in business, and Emma's face became synonymous with the brand. But it wasn't just about the success. It was about the journey. Emma had started as a janitor, and now, she was leading a national campaign for a restaurant empire. She had done it not through luck or connections, but through hard work, passion, and the unwavering belief that she could make it. As she stood in the kitchen of the original restaurant one night, watching the chefs prepare the evening's dishes, Emma realized something. She hadn't just built a business, she had built a legacy. A legacy that would inspire others to follow their dreams, no matter where they started. And that, to her, was the greatest reward of all. The restaurant empire continued to grow, and so did Emma's influence. The campaign had been a success beyond anyone's expectations. She had gone from being a quiet, overlooked janitor to the face of a thriving restaurant chain. Yet, with all the success came new challenges. As Emma walked through the bustling kitchen of one of the newest locations, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She was no longer just a chef. She was a mentor, a leader, and someone who shaped the future of the brand. The staff respected her not only for her culinary skills, but for the way she had built this empire with her own hands. Emma knew this success had been earned. But with the success came pressure, and it was starting to take its toll. The constant media attention, the high expectations, and the responsibility of overseeing multiple locations had begun to weigh heavily on her. She had always believed that hard work and dedication were the keys to success, but now, she found herself questioning whether she had lost a piece of herself in the process. One evening, after a particularly long day, Emma sat in her office, staring out the window at the city skyline. The lights twinkled in the distance, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. She had dreamed of this life, of having her own restaurant, of being recognized for her talent. But now, she felt overwhelmed by the demands of being the face of the brand. She missed the days when it was just about the food, when her passion for cooking was the center of everything. Richard knocked gently on the door before entering, his familiar smile greeting her. "Long day?" he asked, sitting down across from her. Emma nodded, letting out a deep sigh. "I never thought it would be like this," she said quietly. "I love what we've built, but sometimes I feel like I'm losing sight of what truly matters." Richard listened quietly, nodding in understanding. "I get it," he said after a pause. "The pressure can be a lot. But you've created something incredible, Emma. You've inspired people, you've built a legacy. And that's not something you should take lightly." Emma smiled faintly. "I know, but sometimes it feels like I'm just running on autopilot, trying to keep up with everything. I miss just cooking, you know? I miss the simplicity of it." Richard leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Maybe it's time to take a step back, even if just for a little while. Remember why you started this in the first place. You didn't do it for the fame or the recognition. You did it because you loved food. Maybe you need to get back to that." Emma thought about his words. It had always been about the food. It had always been about creating something beautiful, something that made people feel something when they tasted it. That was why she had started, why she had fought so hard to get to this point. "You're right," Emma said, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. "Maybe it's time I remembered why I started this. It's not about being the face of the brand. It's about creating something meaningful." Richard smiled, his eyes filled with encouragement. "You've got this, Emma. You've built this empire on your terms. And now, you get to shape the future in the way that feels right for you." The next day, Emma took a step back. She spent time in the kitchen, reconnecting with her love for cooking, experimenting with new flavors, and rediscovering the joy she had always felt when she was creating something from scratch. She also made time to mentor her team, showing them not just the technical skills of cooking, but the heart and soul behind every dish. It wasn't just about the food anymore. It was about the people, the relationships, and the legacy she had built. Emma realized that success wasn't just about achieving greatness. It was about staying true to yourself, even when the world around you changed. As she stood in the kitchen, surrounded by her team, she knew that she had found her balance again. She was no longer just a chef or the face of the brand. She was Emma, the woman who had built something extraordinary, and she was proud of every step of the journey. The next few months felt like a new chapter for Emma. She had rediscovered her passion for cooking, but she had also learned to balance the demands of leading a growing empire. The restaurant chain continued to thrive, and Emma knew it wasn't just about the food anymore. It was about the culture she had built, one where people felt inspired and empowered to do their best. One day, as she stood in front of the stove, overseeing the preparation of a new dish, Emma reflected on everything she had accomplished. It wasn't just the restaurants or the accolades that mattered. It was the fact that she had stayed true to herself through it all. The media campaigns, the national recognition, the long hours, they had all come and gone. But at the heart of it, Emma had always remained the same. She was the woman who had started as a janitor, and through hard work, she had built something extraordinary. Richard, who had been with her every step of the way, came into the kitchen that afternoon, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a certain excitement. "Emma, we've got an opportunity," he said, his voice eager. "There's a new project in the works, and the investors want you to be involved." Emma looked up from the pot she was stirring, raising an eyebrow. "Another expansion?" she asked, knowing how relentless the growth had been. Richard shook his head. "No, not an expansion. It's something different. They want to create a culinary academy, a place where we can teach aspiring chefs, share our knowledge, and inspire the next generation." Emma was taken aback. This wasn't just about food or business. This was about legacy. She had never considered herself a teacher, but the idea of passing on the lessons she had learned over the years was something she couldn't ignore. "What do you think?" Richard asked, sensing her hesitation. Emma stood still for a moment, contemplating. She had built a brand, a restaurant empire, but now she was being asked to build something that could shape the future of the culinary world. She wasn't just leading a restaurant anymore. She was being offered the chance to shape the next wave of chefs. "I think it's time," Emma said slowly, a smile forming on her face. "It's time to give back, to help others find their way, just like I did." Over the next year, Emma helped launch the academy, working with a team of talented chefs, instructors, and mentors to create a curriculum that would inspire and challenge the students. The academy became an instant success, drawing students from all over the country who wanted to learn from the woman who had once been a janitor and had risen to become one of the most respected chefs in the world. Emma found fulfillment in this new role. She wasn't just creating dishes anymore. She was shaping lives. She spent her days teaching, mentoring, and guiding the students, sharing the wisdom she had gained over the years. The academy wasn't just a place to learn how to cook. It was a place to learn about resilience, passion, and perseverance. It was about showing the students that no matter where they came from, they had the potential to achieve greatness. As Emma watched the students graduate, ready to take on the world, she felt a deep sense of pride. She had built something more lasting than a restaurant. She had created a legacy that would inspire generations to come. She had come full circle, from the quiet janitor in the back of a kitchen to the mentor and teacher who was now shaping the future of the culinary world. Emma had done it all, and she had done it on her own terms. She had stayed true to who she was, and in doing so, she had created something that would outlast the fame, the restaurants, and the awards. She had created a legacy that would inspire others to follow their dreams, just as she had. And that was the greatest achievement of all.